Hey everyone, Kyle Walker here. If you love cars, fixing things, or just want to understand your vehicle better, you're in the right place. I share hands-on tips, smart driving advice, and straight-up car talk without the fluff. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stick around till the end. You don't want to miss what's coming up. Let's get into it.
With the advent of the satellite era, the emergence of navigation systems was only a matter of time. Both the USA and the USSR initiated developments in this area at about the same time. In the Soviet Union, research related to the development of navigation systems began in the late 1960s, while a similar American program was launched in the early 1970s. In the United States, the first satellite included in the complex of artificial aircraft for geopositioning was launched in 1978. Within the GLONASS system, in 1982, sufficient number of satellites for full-fledged functioning of GPS appeared only in 1993. As for the stable operation of the GLONASS system, the plans to launch the required number of satellites into orbit were hindered by the collapse of the USSR. And only in 2001 it was decided to revive this space project. Currently, there are 28 satellites in the system, 24 of which are primary satellites, 4 are backup satellites, and 9 more satellites are being prepared for launch into orbit. It should be noted that the GLONASS system was developed in such a way that it could work with navigation satellites of all existing systems, including the American GPS and European Galileo, which would provide unprecedented accuracy of readings of received signals and full autonomy in operation. It was also planned to develop car navigators on the basis of GLONASS, but due to a number of objective factors, it was not possible to realize the plan in full. The matter was limited to the appearance of the GLONASS ERA system, designed for emergency notification of interested services about accidents. Today we will talk about how this system works, what its functions are, and about the nuances concerning the legislative aspects of its application. Principle of operation of the GLONASS system. As we have already noted, GPS and GLONASS systems were developed in parallel for a long time, so it makes sense to consider their work using the principle of comparison. The GLONASS system, as in the case of the American GPS, was initially developed exclusively for the needs of the military. But the Americans quickly realized that commercial use can bring a lot of benefits, and soon their geopositioning system became publicly available for use in the private sector on a fee basis. The GLONASS system stands apart in this respect. Its use in the non-governmental sector is partially regulated, but in many cases, it can be used free of charge. If we explain the essence of the GLONASS car system at the popular level, it is the interaction of 3 autonomous systems of equipment: the satellite cluster itself, ground control systems, and client equipment installed directly in the car, trackers, receivers, beacons. To cover most of the Earth's surface with spacecraft located in geostationary orbit, 24 satellites are required. At the same time, for accurate determination of coordinates by any equipment using satellite signals, it is necessary to have 4 satellites in the area of its visibility. The location of the space cluster is designed in such a way as to ensure that this requirement can be met practically anywhere on our planet. The essence of a ground-based positioning device is as follows. Each satellite continuously sends signals to the ground in a special format in which the time of sending is encoded. But since this signal has a finite propagation speed, it reaches the Earth with a certain delay. Knowing the delay time between sending the signal and receiving it, you can calculate the distance to the satellite. Of course, this is not enough to determine the coordinates of the reader. But if it takes into account signals from 4 or more satellites, then, using a special algorithm, it is able to establish its location with a sufficiently high theoretical accuracy. For GLONASS, it is plus or minus a few meters, but due to a number of reasons the error can be an order of magnitude, or even several orders of magnitude, higher. There may be several reasons for this mismatch: special error, deliberate distortion of the time of signal arrival from the satellite, introduced to ensure that the accuracy of coordinate measurement for civilian purposes was obviously less than for military purposes. The nature of the geometric location of the satellites. In order for the readings to be as accurate as possible, the instrument must receive signals from satellites located at the maximum distance from each other in the sky. In practice, this is not possible. All 4 satellites may be available at a particular time at a particular point in space in one area, such as the Northwest. This significantly reduces the accuracy of measurements, or even makes it impossible to determine coordinates at all. The presence of a complex landscape. Being in mountainous terrain, you risk getting into an area where the required minimum of visible satellites is not achieved. Gravitational influence of massive space objects, the sun, the moon, although taken into account by satellite equipment and sent to the ground taking into account such influence, can introduce an error of several meters, the influence of the ionosphere on the speed of signal passage. If in open space it is a stable value equal to the speed of light, then when colliding with charged ions, electromagnetic waves are refracted, changing their trajectory and thereby increasing the distance to the ground. Similar errors occur in the troposphere, but here the cause is different, the influence of weather factors. That is why those satellites that hover above the horizon below 10 degrees are not taken into account. The presence of high-rise buildings and powerful sources of electromagnetic radiation, radars, radio stations, cellular signal amplifiers, also reduces the accuracy of coordinates determination. Accumulation of errors during computational operations. If we sum up the influence of these and some other unmentioned factors, we get the very 100 to 150 meters, which we talked about above. However, on the earthly scale for most tasks, even this error is quite enough to determine the coordinates and find the object, because ideally the horizon line is located at a distance of about 4 kilometers. For a highway, this is even less significant, since the road implies at least a narrow, open area and limited search directions in case of an accident call. Now let's consider how the GLONASS button works in a car. Initially, the system was designed so that, if necessary, an accidental call of the device informing about an accident could be canceled. Of course, if the driver has the ability to reach in specific conditions to the notorious signal button. The algorithm of operation of such a notification system is as follows. A signal about the accident is sent either by pressing the button or as a result of fixation by sensors of a strong concussion of the car, including the overturning of the vehicle. The device uses the navigation module function to determine the coordinates of the accident location. Data on the car location is transmitted via cellular communication to the nearest response center. The emergency dispatcher contacts the driver by sending a signal to the vehicle's navigation device. If the driver does not respond or confirms the accident, the dispatcher contacts the paramedics, informing them of the location of the vehicle involved in the accident. The ambulance immediately goes to the accident site. The current regulations suggest that it takes no longer than 20 minutes for paramedics to arrive at the victim's home. In practice, the ambulance often arrives even faster if the accident occurred in the city. If on the highway, it is not always possible to meet the standards, given the large distances between settlements. Read also, features of the 12-cylinder engine. Tasks solved by the system ERA GLONASS. At the moment, the system of emergency call for emergency services, functioning on a free basis, except for Russia, is not used anywhere else. However, in our country it has been launched relatively recently, since 2015, and currently does not cover all vehicles. Moreover, not all new cars are equipped with such equipment, but after 2019, when the OTTS expires, it will be practically impossible to buy a car that is not equipped with an emergency call system. The main functions of GLONASS in a car are recognition of road accidents and notification of rescue services with transmission of time/coordinates of the accident, receiving and transmitting information about the severity of the accident, providing two-way communication between the dispatcher of the emergency response service and the driver. In addition, the system can be used for other tasks that are not among the main ones, to monitor the location of the vehicle in real time, for search and security functions, as a navigation system. What is the benefit of using GLONASS in a car? The widespread introduction of the system makes it possible to significantly increase the likelihood of survivability of victims in road accidents, since, according to statistics, the majority of fatalities in accidents occur due to the late arrival of the medical team. In the European Union, there is an e-call system which in many respects resembles the domestic one, at the same time it is currently not mandatory, and it is provided on a paid basis. But from 2019, cars not equipped with eCall will also be impossible to buy. Note that in many aspects ERA GLONASS is compatible with its European counterpart, that is, a Russian driver, being abroad, can call for emergency assistance without the need to perform any additional actions, reconfiguration of equipment, its registration, etc. ERA GLONASS, composition and principle of operation. Since the emergency call module must work under any circumstances, the developers have given priority to the reliability of devices using the ERA GLONASS system. Therefore, even in very severe accidents, you can count on it to work and ensure the fulfillment of its functions. What does GLONASS ERA look like on a car? Externally, it resembles an ordinary cell phone, equipped with a number of additional functions, sensors that track moments that can be qualified as an accident, as well as the SOS button to call the dispatcher. The module includes the following components that ensure reliable and stable operation of the device. SIM card, which does not require recharges and works absolutely free of charge, but allows you to make calls only to emergency services. A reinforced antenna, which allows to provide communication even on road sections where ordinary cell phones work poorly or do not work at all. 3G modem to provide additional information to the rescue services. Speaker/microphone for emergency communication between the driver/passengers. And the dispatcher, the navigation module itself, the task of which is to track the location of the car and transmit it to the emergency services to ensure rapid arrival at the scene of an accident. It should be understood that many drivers call such a device simplistically a GLONASS button in the car. In reality, this is a multifunctional device, which in the short term will become a mandatory element, the presence of which will be checked when carrying out activities such as vehicle inspection. What the ERA GLONASS system defines. There are many prejudices on the part of drivers regarding the emergency notification system in case of accidents. The main one is the fear of being able to track the car's location. However, this is not true. The tracking function in the ERA GLONASS module is activated only when the sensors are triggered, that is, in moments of disaster. Only in this case, the entire functionality of the device is activated, which is able to transmit to the relevant services really vital information, accurate, with the error of the positioning system used, coordinates of the accident, the number of people in the car, tracked by the number of seat belts fastened, data received at the moment of the accident from the onboard computer, speed, experienced overloads at the moment of impact, basic information about the vehicle, model, license plate number, color of the car, fuel type used, important when using SBO. Based on this data, as well as the information provided to the dispatcher by the victims, if they are able to do so, a decision is made on who to send to the accident site first and what they are likely to encounter. To be fair, although GLONASS ERA was originally developed as an exclusively domestic system, oriented on the Russian pool of navigation satellites, it is now allowed to use the GPS system, which is characterized by greater accuracy of coordinate measurements. That is why all the latest navigation models are equipped with dual chipsets. Is it necessary to have GLONASS ERA on the car? Many bylaws in our country are often interpreted with distortions or even incorrectly. In particular, the law, which began to take effect in 2017, provides for the mandatory installation of the ERA GLONASS module on passenger cars imported from abroad by individuals, which are customs cleared by the owner personally. But this does not mean that emergency buttons should be installed on an old Moskvich or a Mercedes bought 2 or 3 years ago. Currently, there is no law penalizing the absence of a GLONASS module, and any rumors that from 2018 or 2019 will be punished for this are completely unfounded. However, if we say that all new cars purchased after 2017 must be equipped with such modules, there are indeed some important points. The fact is that any new car sold in the territory of the Russian Federation must have a document called Type Approval, abbreviated as OTTS. Rosstandart is in charge of its issuance, and if it does not approve a particular model, distributors are not allowed to sell it in Russia. If you buy a new car in a car dealership, you will be issued a PTS only if you have an OTC. So, the standard validity period of the approval of the vehicle type is 3 years. If you have a car, the validity of which has not expired, you cannot worry about installing the SOS button. However, cars purchased in 2017, after 2020, it will be impossible to operate without ERA GLONASS module. So car owners with a relatively new four-wheeled friend should prepare in advance for the fact that they may be fined for the absence of this device. And vice versa, if you plan to buy a car after 31.12, 2019, the obligation to provide the car with an emergency call module falls on the shoulders of the car manufacturer/dealer/reseller. If we have sorted out the rumors about whether the car must be equipped with a GLONASS module, then some more questions remain unclear. For example, whether it is obligatory to call emergency services if there is an emergency button on at least one vehicle. Some drivers are convinced that it is impossible to register an accident without it. This is not true. Regardless of whether there is an emergency button or not, the registration of the accident by traffic police officers is carried out in any case. Another thing is that the data generated and sent by the module concerning the precise determination of the coordinates of the accident, the speed of the car, and the force of the collision can become a decisive argument in court proceedings. So, if you are sure that you are not the perpetrator of the accident, the use of the ERA GLONASS system will be quite justified and even necessary. True, there is a limitation regarding the time of fixing accidents. The call will be accepted by the dispatcher if the button is pressed no later than 10 minutes after the road accident. However, in most cases, the relevant information will be transmitted automatically without the driver's participation in the case of triggering the impact sensors. How to get the emergency module and install it in the car. Let us list the cases when the installation of the ERA GLONASS system is required. On new cars imported into the Russian Federation. On new cars produced, assembled, within the country. On used vehicles imported into the country after 2017, if their age is less than 30 years. On any used cars sold in the country after 2017 on a voluntary basis. Read also, features and recommendations on the choice of car mechanical anti-theft devices in the first two cases. The corresponding module is installed on the car by the manufacturer, and the device must meet the requirements/norms laid down in the technical regulations of the vehicle in the presence of a certificate of conformity or by the car dealer as part of the pre-sale preparation of the vehicle. Absence of the device is a reason for the Federal Customs Service to refuse to issue a PTS, without which it is impossible to register the car with the State Automobile Inspection Service. In the last two cases, you will have to install the module yourself. Let's describe the procedure, how to install GLONASS on your car. First of all, we note that the car owner does not have the right to install the device. It is just the prerogative of a certified installation center. After installing the module, it is necessary to submit a document confirming the presence of the terminal in a particular car to a certified laboratory specializing in the issuance of certificates of safety of the system, and only after that you can receive the PTS. It should be noted that for production models, certification is done by performing a number of crash tests. This is necessary in order to find out whether the module will remain functional in case of impacts of different types and strength. Based on the information obtained, the sensors are calibrated. Of course, the need to sacrifice several cars for the sake of maximizing the safety of thousands of drivers/passengers is justified. But it cannot but affect the cost of the certification procedure, which increases the cost of the car. However, the installation of the module is not free either and ranges from 4,000 to 6,000 rubles. If you take into account the cost of the module itself, as well as the performance of calibration procedures, then the installation of the emergency warning system will cost you about 20,000 to 30,000 rubles, depending on the region. On old cars, not equipped with ECU, installation of ERA GLONASS is allowed, but the system is triggered only in manual mode when you press the SOS button. Many domestic companies, Space Tim, Suntel Navigation, Fort Telecom, and foreign ones, the most famous are Denko, Continental, Valeo, are engaged in the production of terminals. A number of additional functions are foreseen for the modules in the future. Provision of advisory assistance when starting the power unit, mobile tire service, technical assistance for minor repair services, evacuation of vehicles, emergency commissioner, refueling, technical consulting in remote mode. In other words, the ERA GLONASS terminal will soon become a highly intelligent device that will not only help minimize the consequences of accidents, but also become an indispensable assistant in solving any problems that arise on the road. How to track a car via GLONASS. In addition to accident notification, the GLONASS/GPS module installed in the car is able to perform anti-theft functions, becoming so-called trackers. What is great? Such a means of tracking the vehicle will cost you much cheaper than equipping with a specialized tracker. Of course, not all devices support this function, so in some cases, to be able to carry out search and rescue activities, the terminal will have to be replaced by a suitable device. Such equipment can work continuously, in real time, realizing the coordinates of the vehicle and sending them to any remote device. This can be a computer, tablet, or any mobile gadget connected to the internet. Having such a terminal, you cannot be afraid that your car will be the object of close attention of car thieves. But the possibilities of trackers are not limited to this. For example, for owners of trucking companies, it is the only way to control the misuse of vehicles and a means to optimize routes to save fuel. For insurance companies, data on the driving style of car owners can become the basis for assessing the degree of their danger and possible risks when concluding Casco/Osago contracts. How to determine the location of the car via GLONASS. It's simple. Any terminal has a corresponding sensor. You just need to initiate its work in a continuous mode. This is done by installing the appropriate software. You can track the car via GLONASS on the computer, which is registered in the device, and to which the current coordinates of the car are sent with a specified periodicity. Unfortunately, at the moment, the possibility of choosing an ERA GLONASS module when buying a car is not provided, as well as the possibility of replacing the existing terminal with a more advanced one. However, when installing it yourself, it is best to install a module with similar functionality. If necessary, you can activate/deactivate it at any time. That is, you can track the car via GLONASS only if necessary, for example, if your car is currently driven by your spouse or children. Among the interesting novelties that allow you to expand the scope of use of such terminals, we can note the mode of independent positioning. The fact that modern car thieves are also trying to keep up with the times, and their technical equipment may include means that carry out jamming signals sent from satellites for a short time, sufficient for the hijacking. To ensure that vehicle location functions remain available, such devices are equipped with hybrid navigation modules that utilize additional positioning capabilities in addition to traditional GPS signals, SPAS GPS, or satellite-based differential correction system, BOS GPS, or regional satellite-based differential correction system, IMS GPS, beacon based on the use of Japanese standards, BLE beacons, beacon using Bluetooth low-energy technology for transmission, IGLANS transceivers, Wi-Fi access points, ultrasonic transmitters, television signals. Of course, such modules used as a means of searching for a car on GLONASS, quite expensive, so their use is the domain of quite expensive, elite cars. In any case, the use of technologies related to satellite positioning systems every year is becoming more and more in demand. This is the dictates of the time, which promises in a few years to translate into a de facto standard. In conclusion, GLONASS plays a crucial role in enhancing the navigation and safety features of modern vehicles. By providing accurate positioning data, it helps drivers find their way more efficiently, improves traffic management, and supports emergency services in locating vehicles in distress. As technology continues to evolve, the integration of GLONASS with other systems will further enhance the driving experience, making our roads safer and more connected. Understanding its significance can help us appreciate the advancements in automotive technology and the benefits they bring to our daily lives.